What is good? What is up? It's Jordan or Texans Thoughts, and I'm back with another video, no game breakdown for this week. I'm going to be going over 5 potential trades that the Texans can make instead, and one trade idea that I got from a Texans Thoughts team member. Shout out Anthony23. If you guys want to have input on the videos I make, get a monthly exclusive video, and be in our exclusive Discord, hit that join button to join the team. It'll be right down below the video. In addition, if you guys want a video of me breaking down potential GM candidates, hit the like button. If we reach, say, 250 likes on this video, y'all will get a GM video next week. So hit the like button, subscribe for more content, and comment down below your thoughts on the video. Now, let's get into the trades. So the first thing I want to talk about is the timing of these trades. The trade deadline is November 3rd, so with our bye week, we can really take the time to field trade calls, negotiate, and potentially make some deals happen. But I just don't really trust interim GM Jack Easterby. Don't trust him. There's been more and more articles out there bashing him, calling him a snake when he was with New England. They're calling him power hungry, and I really haven't heard a good word about the dude. The biggest thing for me with Easterby is the fact that he has no legit football experience whatsoever. We already saw how hiring a GM with no GMing experience goes with Bill O'Brien. Not good. And Easterby was complicit with every awful Bill O'Brien decision that he made. So I really don't trust his decision-making ability whatsoever. But here's the problem, we might just have to. No one else is going to take over negotiations during the season. We're stuck with Jack. And you know what, I'm going to call him Joke instead, Joke Easterby. So we're stuck with Joke. And we've got some assets on the team that have diminishing value. The biggest one is JJ Watt. I do not want Joke Easterby's slimy hands anywhere near a potential JJ Watt trade. Nowhere. I can't have that. I do not trust him to get fair compensation. I do not trust him to not get bent over like Bill O'Brien did with the nuke trade. So these first 3 trades I'm going to break down to y'all are the ones that I would want us to wait till after the season is over. We hire a legitimate GM with football experience. I want him to make these trades because they are higher risk trades. There's more risk involved with these players. And if you want to know 2 trades that we can hopefully trust Joke to handle, that'll come later in the video. But for now, let's get to the big fish, one everyone wants to hear about, JJ Watt. Let me know in the comments below whether or not you would be okay with trading Watt. Personally, I think we would be just doing him a bigger disservice by having him stick through this kind of mini rebuild, right? I think he's still an elite pass rusher, but his timeline just doesn't match our timeline, and he deserves to go play for a contender, right? So let's look at some contenders who could make a run for JJ. First, the obvious one is Green Bay, right? He could be the hometown hero, help to lead the Packers to a Super Bowl. They could use one more piece on defense, and Watt can fit into their scheme nicely. He can play 3-4 defensive end, but he can also rush off the edge in 4-man fronts. He'd be a perfect fit, football-wise, and also a city that he wants to play in. And they got a defense that can use him correctly, and he's going to get a chance to contend with Aaron Rodgers. That's option number 1, the most obvious one, right? And I think the most the Packers would offer us is maybe a 2nd-round pick and either a 4th or a 5th-round pick as a sweetener. I really don't believe we're going to get a 1st-round pick for JJ Watt as much as I hope that we could. But with his age and injury history, I just don't think a team is going to offer a 1st. Now, moving on to another option for JJ Watt, one AFC team that I could see potentially making a run at Watt would be actually the Buffalo Bills. I don't think they're going to be true contenders this season, not at the same level as the Packers and then other AFC teams, the Ravens and the Chiefs, not at that level, right? But this trade will happen after the season, right? That's what I'm saying. And if Josh Allen takes another step in his progression, man, that offense is scary. But it's their defense right now that has been sort of a letdown. And they could use Watt's help on the defensive line for sure. And in addition, with Josh Allen, he's still on his rookie contract, right? They don't have to give him the mega Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson deal just yet. So the Bills, they could want to get aggressive and look to get a heavy priced guy like JJ Watt, pay him now while they still can, while Allen's still on his rookie contract and they have the space for a guy like Watt. So that's why they could be more aggressive and inclined to make a move like that. Now, the last potential destination for Watt is one that is completely speculative, I'm just kind of getting creative at this point, but it's Chicago, right? Like the Bills, they may not be a top tier contender this year, but they've got a lot of pieces in place. The offense isn't great, we know that. They need a better quarterback, and if they find one, they can really contend. But what could really push them over the top would be continuing to bolster the elite defense that they've got. JJ can slide into that 3-4 defensive end position across from Akeem Hicks, and those two, plus Khalil Mack, that's an insanely dominant defensive line trio. And so getting away from football, Chicago could be a destination that Watt quietly requests that he would want to go to, right? His wife, Kealia O'Hay, she is a professional soccer player for the Chicago Red Stars, and Watt could really want to finish his career close to her, right? And kind of raise a family. Again, finding a trade partner for Watt has got to be a good mix of a good football situation, with contention, scheme fit, but also good personal life situation to really put him in a good spot and to not have the entire fan base hate this trade and just be doing him wrong. You know what I mean? All right, let's move on to the next and second trade, and it's actually my favorite. I got a little creative with this one, but if the new GM can pull this one off, he'll be on my good side very early. So let's talk about Benardrick McKinney. When you're going through a rebuild, you want to get off of bad contracts, right? Overpaid contracts for underperformers. But then you look around the league and you say, what team is going to want to take on his contract? It's going to have to be another team that isn't the rebuilding stage, but they have tons of cap space, unlike the Texans. And so a team I'm intrigued by is the New York Jets. Now, yes, they've already got CJ Mosley eating up cap space for their linebackers, so the Texans would likely have to add a sweetener to the deal. And I hate to say it, but Lonnie Johnson, he could be the biggest surprise trade candidate. Now, don't get me wrong, I love Lonnie, man. I love his potential. Super excited about his potential going into the season, but I think the Texans are en route to ruining his career. I do not understand why they moved him to safety right after his first year at corner. Spoiler alert, no rookie cornerbacks are good. It rarely ever happens, especially those guys who need time to learn the cornerback position, which is the hardest position to transition to from college to the pros. So why would you just toss all the learning he did at cornerback out the window and say, hey, you're going to learn safety now. Good luck. It blows my mind. They are ruining his career by forcing him into this position. Now, I would have been fine moving Lonnie to safety after maybe 2.5 years of him working at cornerback and maybe still struggling and not seeing much progression. Fine. You gave him a fair shot at cornerback. He's just not cut out for it. I get it. Okay, that makes sense. Try him out at safety now. That would be fine. But not just after 1 year. You're just giving it up. That's crazy. And I think the Texans were triggered by Kareem Jackson. Fans had been screaming for them to move him to safety for years. And when they finally did, guess what? He was a baller. But they did it too late. And they missed out on a damn good safety for more years. So they didn't want to make that same mistake with Lonnie Johnson. But the thing is, they went way too far onto the other side of the spectrum. Right? They moved Lonnie way too early. Too early. And with this new regime coming in, they could be upset with his lack of development at cornerback, and they might not want him at safety. They may not see that fit there with his skill set. They want a different type of safety. And so Lonnie Johnson is one of the few young guys who he could be a legitimate asset for us. Now, who the hell could we get back in return from the Jets? A name that intrigues me more than anyone else who has been rumored to be available is Quinnen Williams. Now, I don't think all that it would take is Lonnie and B-Mac. I think we would have to tack on a 4th round pick maybe. So maybe if we do get a, say, 4th round pick for Kenny Stills or some other trade, spoiler alert, it'll be later in the video, but we could add that 4th round pick to this trade. And, that looks like a lot to give up for just one player. But let me introduce you to the game changer that Quinnen can be. He is a freak. A complete freak of a defensive tackle. Scouts touted him as that next freakish impact interior defensive lineman, someone who can destroy offensive game plans like Aaron Donald. He has an absurd mix of athleticism, raw power, and hand technique. He was the best player in his draft class and the best player on that vaunted Alabama defense. He can play 1 tech, 2 3 tech, 4, and honestly even 5 tech if you want him to. He can 2-gap and play the run well, use strong hands and good leverage to get off blocks. But where he can really make a huge difference that we need especially is as a 1-gapping 3 tech, wreaking havoc in the passing game and on one-on-one blocks. His pass rush moves are very impressive for such a young player coming out of college when I scouted him, and at just 23, his best football is ahead of him. And I really don't want to see the Jets potentially ruin another young stud. The Seahawks saved Jamal Adams. The Panthers saved Robbie Anderson. Who knows if someone can save Sam Darnold, but hopefully the Texans can save Quinnen Williams. We need to retool our defensive line, especially if we're going to lose Watt. And having Quinnen and Blacklock as the future of our interior defensive line would be amazing. So the Jets could be intrigued in replacing his talent with a different young player, and maybe they have a better plan for Lonnie than the Texans have. Maybe they really love his skill set, his ability to tackle, to play aggressive, to play physical, and his athleticism, his build. He's got great size for the position, whether it's cornerback, whether they put him at cornerback, which is a need for them, or they put him at safety and have him try and replace Jamal Adams and be the running mate of Marcus May, another good safety. So yes, this trade is a little bit out there, but it could be the most impactful trade we could possibly make. Quinnen Williams is going to be a stud. Book it. Let's get into Anthony's trade idea. Again, if you guys want to have input like this in the video or talk about trade ideas with me, hit the join button and join the Texans Thoughts team. So Anthony proposed we trade JJ Watt and Bradley Roby to the Steelers for a 1st and a 3rd round pick. So I'll make the case for and against this trade. From the Texans' point of view, the trade is great because we finally get a 1st round pick back, and this year's draft class is pretty top heavy for defense in particular. We can find good depth at running back and wide receiver later in the 3rd round, but it'll be harder to find a true stud impact defender that we need just with how this class is balanced out this year. So that 1st round pick could really help us make a turnaround on the defensive side of the ball. And then obviously getting that 3rd would be nice too. And honestly, I get the intrigue in that. And Roby, I love the dude. I'm about to talk about how much I love the dude, but he is 28. And while we just re-signed him, most cornerbacks don't do well after they cross 30. And so that's me playing devil's advocate. That's the one kind of negative I can see to trading Roby. But let me get into the case against the trade, because I think I'm leaning against the trade at this moment at least. And it honestly all has to do with how much I love Bradley Roby. Yeah, I just said he's getting up there, but Roby's contract is extremely team friendly. I would probably say he got the most bang for your buck on the entire team. He's currently only the 17th highest paid cornerback in the league, in the entire league. But this year, he's been the best and most consistent defender on the team, hands down. He's a very, very high level cornerback too, and honestly a low level cornerback 1 in my opinion. This year he stepped up his game, and it's going to be extremely hard to replicate that type of talent for the money that we pay him. Our secondary is in shambles right now, and we need a proven veteran to try and hold together that cornerback room, especially because we don't know what's going on with the health and future of Garyon Conley. And we've seen what happens when Hargraves and Gaines are our starting cornerbacks. That just can't happen. I genuinely could not even watch the game. They were horrible. And no matter how much we could improve our pass rush, if those 2 guys are going to be starting at cornerback, it's over. Just don't even bother, man. Now we looked at the trades that I want a future GM to make to handle, because those are the kind of big ticket guys. Those are the ones that have more risk involved, more money involved, etc. So what trades do I trust Joke Easterby with to make before the trade deadline of November 3rd? It's still really not anything. It's really not anything I don't really trust him with, but there are some low risk trades that we can explore. But the first one is Kenny Stills. I love Kenny Stills, man. I absolutely love him, and he's a valuable wide receiver, but he's got diminishing value because we can lose him this offseason for nothing in free agency. And I don't want that to happen. We essentially traded a 2nd round pick for him in the Tunsil deal, Now, I hope we can get a 4th or a 5th round pick back in return, which would still hurt, but it's better than nothing, right? So looking at potential trade partners, you want to look at maybe contenders who have a need for wide receiver help. And, at first I thought about maybe Green Bay. That's been a rumor that's floated around. Rodgers can use some help at wide receiver, but I look at them and think their offense is already playing damn good. They don't necessarily need a wide receiver, but they could be in the bidding for Stills, and I just think that they might not offer the most compensation as some of these other teams. I also thought about Baltimore, but then as I'm recording this, they signed Dez like just a few hours ago, so that sucked. The next team I thought of isn't necessarily a top tier contender right now, but the Cleveland Browns, they're in playoff contention, believe it or not. And they just lost OBJ for the season. Prayers up to him. But I do think that they could be the most desperate team for a proven veteran wide receiver of Kenny Stills' talent. And let's not forget how good Stills is. He's only ever had one season with less than 500 receiving yards. He's a big play guy. He's dependable, a good route runner, and someone who's never really had that opportunity to have a bigger target share in an offense. Now with OBJ going down, the Browns need someone who can help step up, and Stills could be the answer they're looking for. In addition, not many teams may want to give up a 4th round pick for Stills because he's only under contract for this current season. But the Browns have the most cap space in the entire NFL. So if he and Baker have a good connection, they have the money to re-sign him. And at 28 years old, he's still got another contract left in him, especially because he's not a dude who depends on just blazing speed and quickness, right? So I think this is honestly the best case scenario the Texans could get at the trade deadline. Kenny Stills to the Browns for a 2021 4th round pick. Now moving on to the second trade I would hope Joe can make, and that's another wide receiver, Keke Coutee. Look, I get the excitement behind wanting the Texans to play Coutee. He's flashed a few games early on, but his inconsistency is maddening. And his lows, man, they are low. They are game-altering, horrible plays that he makes. So this trade is not so much about getting amazing compensation for Keke, but rather just getting anything we can get because I really don't think his trade value is high. I think it's peanuts, man. I think the best you're going to get is a 7th, maybe a conditional 6th if a team gets desperate. But instead of getting one of those late round picks that are crapshoots anyways, maybe Joe can finesse and look for another player instead, a player who has also flash potential, but their inconsistencies are annoying, and they could use a change of scenery as well. So enter Dante Pettis, wide receiver of the San Francisco 49ers. Pettis was a 2018 2nd round pick, and he has a great mix of skills. He's fast, faster than his 4.53 40-yard dash would indicate. He was a punt returner in college at Washington and broke the record for most career punts in college football history. And if you look at his rookie year numbers when he got the opportunity, he made big plays happen. 17.3 yards per reception, that would be the highest out of any wide receiver on the Texans. And again, it's a small sample size, but he flashed, man. He really did flash early on in his career, but he's been somewhat in the doghouse, and he hasn't had a lot of game reps to improve. However, when I watched film on him, I noticed he's a great route runner, using his leverage to deceive opposing cornerbacks and burn them. That's my favorite quality about him. He knows how to get open. And that's something we really need to focus on going into this new regime. Wide receivers who can win versus man coverage and don't need to rely on being schemed open. Because, and I've shown it in my film breakdown this year, but when Watson actually has wide receivers open, he will find them. And obviously the offense moves 100 times better. Anyways, getting back to Pettis, I think he would definitely be worth taking a chance on, especially if all it takes is QT. I would honestly even maybe throw in a 6th or 7th round. To be honest, I think that highly of Pettis. But the 49ers, they're in a similar predicament with Pettis. Their own fans will tell you that he's just too inconsistent, but a change of situation could do him well. So why not have both teams try and benefit from that if they can't get a 6th or 7th round pick that they like. Alright, that's going to do it for the video. If you enjoyed, please do hit that like button, subscribe for more content, and comment down below your thoughts on potential Texans trade scenarios. Remember, if we hit 250 likes, if we hit that goal, next week I'll be making a video looking at my top 5 GM candidates. Shout out to all the Texans Thoughts team members. I really do appreciate y'all. And if y'all want more Texans coverage, check out Texans Unfiltered. We've got a great website, podcast, and YouTube channel where I make more content, and all of those will be linked in the description. Alright, take care everyone, and come back for more. Peace.